my base case was that we were going to see the typical year-end rally. Obviously, most of us had the same idea. Usually when most of us have the same idea, it doesn't work. But the other thing I did know is, having come from that finance background, knowing how hedge funds and institutions work, I also knew that if you're a hedge fund and you've got crypto in your portfolio, you've probably had a good year. So to get paid, you tend to close out your portfolio. So you know what you're going to get paid at the end of the year. So they are incentivized to sell their positions, to go away for Christmas, have a break, that kind of stuff. The institutions like pension funds and others, they tend to rebalance their portfolio. So like Ethereum's up 500% this year. So if they started with a 1% weighting, they're now at a 5% weighting. So they probably bring it back down to, let's say, a 2% weighting in line with their allocation. So you've got institutional sellers that never really were in the market before. And they're not expressing, I don't think, a negative view of the market. What they're just doing is rebalancing for year end. And so my general view is that most of that selling is now done. And so the next thing they all come into January with is a new P&L. And, oh, what do I do now? The only answer is I have to buy
basically
more.
all this red wave this last weeks was like people selling, making some profits, and also rebalancing, you think?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Correct. That's exactly what I think it is. So the metaverse is not a single destination. It is the increasing digitalization of our lives. So right here we are now. I'm in the Cayman Islands. You guys are in Brazil. This is basically a metaverse experience. This is a digital experience that did not exist 5-6 years ago. So, and we now take it for granted. So there's a lot of people, like half of the entire staff at Real Vision, I've never met in person because of this new metaverse. Distributed workplaces are basically metaverse experiences. So everything is being digitized. The acceleration of that digitization is the metaverse. So when we live in this increasingly digital world, then it becomes increasingly difficult for me to exchange value with you until we've built out this blockchain infrastructure that allows us to exchange value digitally, instantaneously around the world. And it's a network that nobody owns. So, that is a great thing. But as Web3 rolls out, we will stop spending our lives arguing over Solana versus Terra or Bitcoin versus Ethereum. And we all care about the consumer applications of stuff that people won't know or care is Bitcoin. We don't talk about, oh, we're on an internet connection today. We don't care. We're on Zoom. And it could be Zoom, or it could be Microsoft Teams, or it could be whatever. We don't really care either. I don't even know what computer you're on. You don't know what I'm on, what internet network you're on. None of that matters. But it's the consumer application that's going to come. And NFTs were the first sight of a consumer application. They're still very geeky. It's still a crappy environment. The wallets are still impossible. Most people don't understand why you want to own a stupid picture of a monkey. None of this really makes sense. The art market was a little more understandable. But my guess is once large communities of culture, so music and sports predominantly, and probably fashion, those three are probably the largest cultural influences in the world. Once they start adopting it, which is happening at NFT level, but I think it's also going to happen at social tokens level, then we will all understand what it means to have the Web3 idea of a stake in a network. And that's the game changer. And we won't think of it as a cryptocurrency or whatever thing. It's like you're participating in that network. It's much like if we'd had all been given shares in Facebook when Facebook launched, we would have all participated in that network. We didn't, though. Everybody fears change, right? That's just a human thing. And the rate of change here is extremely fast. So the gamers were a distinct group of people that had their little world and they knew how it worked. This other world has walked into their world and said, hey, we can bring value where you can move this stuff across games and you can own your things. They're like, back off, this is ours. And it's the same that Jack Dorsey's having with...
Also Discord integrating.
All of these things is people fearing change. Jack Dorsey's like, well, I don't want this Web3 thing. I just want Bitcoin. And, the Ethereum guys are like, we don't want Solana and Terra and Avalanche. Everybody fears change. The Traditional media fears change. The banking industry fears change. When change is happening so fast and it's not being driven by one entity, it's this broadly spread phenomena. It's scary because you don't feel in control.
Yeah.
So I think the gamers feel the same way. Somebody's walked into their world and told them that they can change it. And they're like, no, but you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
It's a really observable phenomena in humans. And it's exactly that. You know, you're researching UX, you will always get the launch and half the people just say, I hate this. You've changed my experience.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I'm getting really interested in is the concept of universal basic equity. So you like Rihanna and you want to be part of Rihanna's community. You identify with Rihanna as a pop star and the culture that's around her. And now you can own one day a token of that network. So now you're incentivized to help Rihanna's network grow. And with that, your token will go up in value. It's Metcalfe's law. That's how you price networks, the number of nodes on the network and the interconnection between them all. So everybody's now incentivized to help that network grow in value, i.e. to make Rihanna's community bigger and more vibrant. And just by being in culture, you have an asset that goes up. So now you're not having to go into an office and work for somebody. You're working for a cultural phenomena. And that as universal basic equity is amazing. It can be around a fashion brand. It can be around a sports team. You know, imagine that around a sports team in Brazil. People have an opportunity.
People here are crazy. Everything stops, you know, when Brazil is playing, like the men's soccer team, everything stops. Like the country stops to watch the team play, you know.
That's right. And so imagine if you tokenize that, now you're incentivized to grow the community of one of the leading Brazilian clubs. And you want to make it international. You start making video content about it. You're on Twitter. You're creating a more vibrant community and people can see that and they want to be part of that community too. And therefore the value of that community appreciates. Now, maybe, you know, because it's like-minded people, a bunch of those token holders get together, create an NFT, and then create a business off the back of it, selling new footballs because somebody's come up with an idea. And before you know it, you're building network effect on top of network effect. And that is extraordinary around culture. That was not possible before. Look at the holders of crypto. They're not the traditional holders of equities.
Yeah.
So here's a bunch of old people wagging their fingers saying, well, it's much more volatile. The younger people who own crypto like the volatility because the volatility gives returns, risk reward. Well, the equity market gives less of that. So it's a whole change in risk appetite for the population.